This video, just a short video of this, I'm going to be showing you how I taper a tang. I've done loads of these now over the years, hundreds and hundreds of them, and so therefore I've sort of refined my processes and just got better at it really. Now this is a 4mm, straight 4mm tapered, non-tapered at the moment. Hardened and heat treated and tempered blank for a bushcraft knife. It's 4mm, as I say, 4mm thick all the way along. I've already started the first process of tapering this tang, and that is to clean up the back, the pommel, mark it with some engineer's blue, or I think in this case I just used indelible black marker, and then I scribed 2 lines, and then those 2 lines designate the thickness where I want the back of the tang to be, and then what I do, I then grind down at sharper angles, something like that sort of an angle, to those 2 lines, and I'll try and show you, I'll try and bring you in for a closer look at that. Okay, I'm hoping you can see those 2 lines, and you can just see the flat there where I've ground down, and the same on that side. Well, that side I put engineer's blue over it. So that gives me the visual indicator for where I want to do my hollow grind. And what I do, I've got a 6-inch diameter wheel, and then I'll hollow this tang out. It'll be a deeper hollow at this end and a very light hollow at this end, so you'll see it sort of flaring from a very fine channel there. It'll flare out into almost the whole back of the tang here, and that's hollowed that out. That makes the next process a lot easier, a lot more accurate, and a lot quicker. So let's hollow this out first. I should say that when I'm doing this, anyone that's new to knife making or wanting to refine their skills, a lot of it is to do with muscle memory, and a lot of it is to do with how you move your whole body when you're on the grinder. If you can move your whole body, you seem to just have more control, rather than just move your hands. Rather than just move your hands, hold the piece and move your body. That tends to give you more accuracy. Right, let's have a look at this. I think that's in focus there. So you can see how I've now hollowed that out in preparation for the next step, which will be on the flat platen, where I will then taper it down. It'll be tapered down till the little, well, it'll look like little half moons as you come down to it, and they'll disappear. When they disappear, I've gone down far enough on the back, and then it's just a matter of working that forward, and you want to come up just before where the grind starts to get it all flat for the scales to sit nice and flat and true. So what I've done now, so there's a bit of a jump in time because this is now the next day. I had to go out after I filmed the last clip. What I've done now, I've set the grinder with its platen, the flat platen, on the machine, and the next thing that I've got to do is offer these knives up to form that very, very shallow bevel, and it's just a matter of, how can I show you, if you imagine that's the platen, then obviously that being totally flat, that's going to grind the whole flat surface of the knife, which is no good. So I'm back in a sec. So what you'll see me do, I use a welder's magnet. This is a process which does require a little bit of practice, and if you do try it yourself, you're probably going to wreck a few knives to start off with. So magnet like that, and then I grind this bottom section. So I don't put it onto the platen flat, I put it on at a slight angle. That's exaggerated, just a slight angle, and I'll work at maybe 2 or 3 inches up the back of the pommel. Flip it over and do the same on the other side. And it's difficult for me to explain it. It's a feel thing, and I'm looking. I want to see how evenly it grinds up either side, and I'm looking also for the angle of the grind. I'm looking not to go any deeper than the actual hollowed out section. And it's the subtle pressures. Sometimes a little bit of pressure that way, a little bit of pressure on the side, a little bit of pressure on this side. It's so subtle, and with those subtle pressures, you can steer how the knife, how the belt grinds onto the knife, and you can get it to come up nice and even. And then when it's up to this far, I'll then flip it up, and I'll be putting. You can imagine it, if I'm holding it there, the pressure's like that. If I flip it up, the pressure's like that. But I'm grinding on that angle, and so I'm then, instead of hitting here, I'm starting to hit the belt up here more than I am there, and then this then follows it up further and further, until I get to a point around about there. And at that point, that's the time to stop using that belt because it's too coarse, and you could put lines and scratches into the flats of the knife then. And I'll go over to a finer grit, maybe a P80, and then I'll follow it up a bit further. And also, I should be showing this on the grinder really, but I'll be using the whole surface of the grinder, not just one particular part of the platen, because what happens if you do that? You wear the belt away in that particular part, and then you've got unused grit either side of the belt, and when you bring your work onto the unused grit, that difference in the depth of the grit will affect the tapered tang, so it's all got to be even. Let me just show you that on the grinder. So what I'll do to start off with, just go over that process again. I'll put it on like that. Not like that. Not like that. It's obviously well over exaggerating, but it's got to be dead square on. And then I'll grind that down until I get rid of the hollow at the back there. Flip the knife over, and I'll do the same thing. steering and watching that grind as it comes up, and I'll probably stop it around about here, at which point I'll flip the knife. I've already got my bevel cut in then, and I can use that as a guide. I can rest it on there like that, and then it's just a matter then of making sure that I don't tilt. If you tilt, you ruin your tang. So it's all kept flat, and then it's just using up the whole surface of that belt, not just keeping it in one place like that. Obviously I might have to take it off and quench it to cool it down, because it will get hot, and that can also affect the tang and make it warp. I put a fresh belt on. Fresh belt, not only does it speed up the process, it cuts a lot cooler as well, but because you have got quite a high grit, this is a 36 grit belt, you've got to be careful to keep that away from the flat here. Just one little scratch into that flat, and if it's deep enough, that's a scrap blade. So got to be a bit careful. I'm going to put my dust mask on. This is a power cap. People often ask about it. Do I recommend it? Not really. I've had it a couple of 3 years now. It's beginning to crack. The filters clog up very quick. I'm probably going to upgrade it pretty soon. Okay, let's get on and do some work. Okay, this is the first cut, so to speak. And you can see that I've taken it down almost to grind out the depth indication mark that I put in initially. And as you look at the other side, that's how it is with this hollowed out handle. So now I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do this onto this side. And then that's that side ground down. So it doesn't take long to do that, and it's still, because the belt is quite fresh and new, there's hardly any build up of heat at all. You have got to watch that. So that's the first part of the tapering, is the proper tapering of the tang. Now I'm going to chase this with the 36 grit belt up to about this point here, at which I'll then change over to a finer grit. So instead of going on like that, I'm now going to go on like that. But I've got to be really careful, because these teeth on this belt, being fresh, could cut up here onto this, and we don't want that. So hopefully you can see now that I've now chased the taper up a bit further, and I'm going to stop on that at that point, and I'm going to swap over to a finer grit. So I've gone from that height there to that height there, and at that point it's time to stop, go on to a finer grit belt. But before I do that, I've got to do all these as well. So I'll bring you back in a while. Okay, I finished all the work I'm going to be doing on the 36 grit belt now. So I'll change this one out and I'm going to put on a fresh 80 grit P80. I find that seems to work well. So that's it, that's the tang tapered to 80 grit. And you can see that I've got virtually up and down and a defined finish to where the taper meets the flat of the blade, and the same that end. I've got another process that I go on to that I won't show in this video, but basically I go on to a big flat contact wheel. I can show you the wheel, the size of it. It's a big flat contact wheel. The larger diameter means that you've got much more contact surface, and then I just run the entire blade all the way along just to blend that transition there into the flat, and then I go over to my hand rubbing bench and I use blocks of corian, and basically corian's very flat. This is a piece of corian here, it's extremely flat, and then using an abrasive wrap round that, I then go along and take out any little indiscrepancies, could you call it. There aren't many in this at all. This is going to be pretty flat, but if there's any sort of little hollow in there or any little high spots, it takes it all out, and then you end up with a nice sharp line there, which you'll just see you'll see the light hitting it, and that's about it. I've gone down to just below 2mm on the pommel from a 4mm thickness, so there's still tons and tons of strength in that, but it does just add to the aesthetics of the knife. And although the camera doesn't show it so well, you're probably picking it up, but when you put all the knives together, you can see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see the effect of it then. So there you go. that's all the tapered tangs, 6 tapered tangs altogether. And it is an acquired skill. It's something which you pick up. It's difficult to tell you, because it's very settled pressure. You know, you can steer the grind. It's very settled pressure. It's just how you press a little bit, maybe on that part of the magnet, or perhaps this side or the other side, and that just affects how the belt grinds onto the steel. And whenever word of advice I can give anyone that's thinking of doing their own tapered tangs is that as soon as the belt starts cutting off, as soon as it starts going, it's not cutting well. What can I say? You're not getting sharp grind lines. You're not getting the results you want. That's probably an indicator that your belt's gone, and it's time to replace it. I had to replace the belt halfway through these on the 80 grit. So there's an old saying, use your belts like water. Use them as though they were free. The fact is that they're not. You know, I just had a big bill for £360 for a batch of belts. But it's false economy to keep persisting with an old worn out belt that's not cutting very well, it's not cutting very accurately, and it's building up heat. It's just not worth persisting with that belt. It's had its day. Take it off the grinder and chuck it away. There's another look at the knives. Look, with the this time with the flats all together, so you can see the gaps in between where the tangs have been tapered. You can probably see it better from that angle. There you go. That's all the tapered tangs. Very enjoyable process. I do enjoy tapering tangs. Don't know why, it's one of the processes that I enjoy the most. I think it's because, you know, I have something I've practiced it at. Well, I practice all aspects of the craft, I suppose, but just enjoy tapering tangs. It's all done freehand as well, as you can see. Anyway, with that I'm going to get on, finish these knives off, and then I've got to grind the bevels on them. I've got to then build up the, cut the scales, fit the liners, G10 liners, and a lot of other processes yet before I'm anywhere near completing these. But I hope that's been of interest and help to someone out there. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.